Unstable Dragon Armor is currently one of the cheapest and arguably worst dragon sets in Hypixel Skyblock, but is it really all that bad? The short answer to that is no, but why that is the case? Well, that's what I'm making today's video. I've compiled a list of reasons as to why Unstable Armor isn't as bad as you think it is, and also some common misconceptions about the armor set to hopefully guide newer players in the right direction when picking up their first dragon set. But before we dive into the facts, if you have any further questions that I didn't answer in today's video, be sure to tune into my Twitch streams. I stream every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. The links are down in the description below. We tend to talk about all sorts of Skyblock related things over there, and trust me, you won't regret it. With that being said, let's jump straight into the video. Okay, so I'm here in the Hypixel Hub, as you can see, wearing my Unstable Dragon armor set, and also just before we do get into the video, I want to say that I'm actually playing on a second profile here. So this is the gear that we're going to be running today, full unpleasant Unstable Dragon armor, with this really sort of cheapish Raiders axe that I managed to craft myself, and then this Renarn's bow that I've also enchanted as well. I will be using this explosive bow later in the video. I did transfer this from my main profile, so stick around to see why we've got this. But the first thing I want to hop into is the main reason why I really think this set is completely underrated, and the main reason why I think it's probably one of the best value for money sets in the entire game, and the value that it provides to any player, especially newer players inside of Hypixel Skyblock. So, what is this, you may be asking? Well, if I hover over literally any piece here and you take a look at the crit chance, we get a 13% crit chance with the Unpleasant Reforge, because every piece has a 5% crit chance by default with no other reforges or anything added onto it. And when you do go with Unpleasant, which does give you more crit chance, not so much crit damage and other things, but mainly crit chance, you can bump up your base crit chance just with your armor set to a whopping 52%, and this is with no talismans, with nothing. It's super useful. If you actually look at my talisman bag here, I don't even have that many talismans, and I'm actually able to get a max out 100% crit chance with this set. So that's one thing that I really like about Unstable, and something that people seem to overlook. And people may be arguing, well, if you do rely on your crit chance early on in the game, when it does come to switching to a new set like maybe Strong, or if you really want to, you can go with Young, you're gonna have to spend a lot of money on reforges and talismans, and you're not gonna be able to hit the 100% crit chance. And for that, I kind of argue back that you can't really say that, because if you're gonna upgrade to Strong anyways, you're gonna have a lot of money to spare, and if you're gonna have a lot of money to spare, you should be prepared to spend that money. And honestly, being able to one-shot lots of mobs, like if we just go over to the crypt real quick, let's go to the crypt ghouls and just demonstrate the damage I can deal. I can just come here and one-shot all the crypt ghouls, deal about what, 4,700 damage per hit, and that doesn't seem like a lot, but keep in mind this profile only has about combat 16 and only 13 talismans with a pretty weak main weapon, and I'm still able to crit every single time, deal a solid roughly 5,000 damage a hit, and it makes things so much easier, and it makes it way more comfortable when farming, where you can get 100% crit chance, and also the fact that this scales up. If you are a more dedicated player and you spend the time to get a better weapon, you spend the time to get some better talismans as well, you should be able to deal way more damage with what I'm dealing. I just came onto here to prove a point, really. So that's the whole crit chance sort of deal that I wanted to cover in the beginning of the video here. Now, another thing that you may be asking is, why would you go for Unstable when you can go for Young armor and then just Zealot farm and get a ton of eyes, and then get that money from the eyes to buy yourself a better set like Strong, or get some talismans, or maybe get a better weapon? Well, to that I say, you can actually do all of that without Young armor. Now, let's have a look here. So I have this explosive bow in my inventory, which is something that I wanted to be showing for a while. So real quick, let's just go teleport to the end. So now that we are in the end here, I'm going to take out my explosive bow from my inventory, put it in my hotbar, and I'm going to show you guys what I mean by this and why it's super useful and how it can rival Young armor. Now, I'm sure that many of you guys know that there's plenty of people that will just chill down in the Dragon's Nest, if we just make our way down there nice and peacefully, who just sort of sit there explosive bowing zealots, and people find them really annoying. Now, here's the thing, right? So, Zealot farming normally is done just with speed, god pots, Young armor, or whatever, something of the sorts, and you're just able to sort of like run around like this guy is right now, just running around killing zealots at about 500% speed. Well, you can actually just do the same thing with, say, Unstable, where since you've maxed out your crit chance, you're able to do 100% crit every single time. And of course, if you've got better talismans or a better weapon, you'll be able to farm zealots much easier, just like this, with the explosive bow and sword swapping. And yeah, sure, maybe it may be annoying to other players, but at the end of the day, it is a fair fair strategy. It works, it is something that people can use, and in my opinion, it rivals it pretty well. There have been tests in the past made by several different people that does prove that Young is still more efficient, but for only costing around under 2 mil for this set and a bow, which you can actually use for fishing as well, I would say it's really good value for money, and this set can also be carried in to do different slayers before you actually gain those slayer sets. And with that being said, that actually leads me into my second point that I want to make in today's video, and it's literally what just happened right there behind me, the ability that this armor set gives you. Now, some people think it's really weak, it's pretty useless, it almost never comes into play, and doesn't really do that much. However, there's one thing that I don't think many people have thought about, and it's the fact that when you are farming Zealots, I'm not farming Zealots here because I actually can't one-shot them on this account, but if you are able to farm Zealots because you played the game enough, and you can just sort of come around and sort of two-tap them or one-shot them, the thing with the unstable ability is because it tags the Zealot first and not actually killing it instantly, when you come and you hit it a second time, so this enemy just got hit, if I come in and hit it again, if that were a Zealot, it would increase my chances of getting a Summoning Eye from a 1 in 420 after you've killed, I think, 240 Zealots, to something like a 1 in 384 chance, and that in turn is actually really useful because, yes, sure, Young gives you all that speed, it lets you run around like crazy, and it's super easy to just go around and kill Zealots here, but with the explosive bow, if you're able to sort of just like snipe them from a distance, do your thing, maybe the unstable lightning goes off around Zealots in the area, and it hits them, then you're able to get a higher chance of getting a Summoning Eye, just a little thing to keep on the side that you may not have actually thought about before. And this all leads me on to my third point, where I mentioned that it actually makes it way easier to farm Zealots in Unstable than it is for Young. Now, Young isn't a bad set by any means. I'm not saying that Young is terrible, but I'm only using Young as a comparison here because it's one of the other sets that people tend to go for when they're first getting their Dragon set. After maybe Ender Armor or Old or Protector, people normally jump either to Young or they jump to Strong. Now, the reason why I say that Unstable rivals Young, not so much Strong because Strong is a lot stronger than Young is, but the reason why Unstable can rival Young is because of the stat boosts, mainly this crit chance, giving you more damage when fighting Slayers. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, think about it. If you say head over to the crypts like we did in the beginning of the video and demonstrate a couple of new things, you can see that because we can one-shot these crypt ghouls, we do a decent amount of damage, getting that 100% crit chance is really nice. It actually lets you prioritize your talismans to be something like Itchy or Zealous if they're common, and then Forceful or even Godly for epics and rares, so you can deal a lot more damage just with weaker weapons than you would be able to with Young, and that in turn makes doing things like revs, maybe your first rev 2s or maybe even rev 3s depending on how geared you are. It makes it much easier to kill them without, say, the zombie set, or if you're doing Wolf or Tara, much easier without the Tarantula set or without the Mastiff set, and those sets are actually really expensive, definitely way more expensive than Young is if you don't get really lucky with pricing, and being able to cheap out on your first couple of Slayers and do them relatively easily with just a very cheap set like Unstable makes it much more valuable than what you may think, and in my opinion is what really sealed the deal for me when I was an early game player and I was using Unstable Dragon Armor as well. So now that I've covered all the things that I want to cover in this video, the fact that Unstable gives you a lot more crit chance and also a pretty solid amount of crit damage, and it allows you to use many different weapons, many different talisman combinations while still letting you get the 100% crit chance, along with the fact that you can use an explosive bow to rival Young Armor, paired with the fact that you can do a lot more Slayers as well. I want to talk about why this brings so much more value to a newer player and why you should pick it up if this hasn't convinced you already. So let's take these things a step back. The normal progression for an early game player is to go from something like Hardened Diamonds to Ender or possibly a cheaper Dragon set, and then to either Young, Strong, and further off probably Superior or Frozen Blaze. And people tend to skip Unstable Dragon Armor simply because they think, oh, it's a cheap set, it's not worth much, it really doesn't do anything, it's got the same stats as the rest of them, sort of disregarding the fact that the crit chance and the crit damage even exists. Now the thing is, if Unstable was a little bit more expensive than what it is, then maybe that is true, maybe that is a good idea to skip it, because if you were paying, say, maybe 500k a piece, 600k a piece, it wouldn't be worth it. But the fact that I was able to pick up, at least me personally, I was able to pick up this entire set for about like 800, 850k. It almost cost me nothing, and it was like half the price of a Young set depending on how unlucky you get. And that's what really makes it so powerful. The fact that you can literally get yourself a full set of armor for under 1,000,000 coins, it comes with some solid defense, some solid health, and just the crit chance and damage overall. That's something that you really can't turn a blind eye to and sort of ignore. And while yes, Young armor does come with its perk of being able to run really quickly, for me personally, I don't think that that competes with Unstable unstable, as well as some people sort of hype it up to be, because that speed, while it's very good for zealot farming, once again, like I mentioned in the video, you could still use something like an explosive bow, or you can even get a god splash, and you could still outspeed people, or get really close to if you want to put like farmer's boots or something else, depending on how many talismans or your combat level. And that about wraps up today's video, so hopefully I explained myself pretty well here. I just want to talk a little bit about my personal experience with this armor set, and also just to clear up a couple of things, because I've seen a lot of people in games saying that Unstable is not good, or that Young is definitely better, and every time that I sort of tried to get my point across, some people just sort of ignore it, or sort of disregard it and treat it as if it was complete trash, when in reality, I think it's still pretty powerful. It's still a very great option if you are in the early game, and once again, I'm not saying that Young is a bad set, I'm not saying that Strong is a bad set, I'm not saying that any of the other sets are a bad set, simply the fact that Unstable is a great choice if you want to go for early game, early on, to get yourself a bit of the taste of mid game and prepare yourself further on for the late game. But that's gonna be it for me today, guys. Hope you guys did enjoy this video. If you did, be sure to leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel, because I make these Hypixel Skyblock videos every Wednesdays and Fridays. And also, if you do have any further questions, comments, or suggestions about this video, be sure to pop into my Twitch streams. I stream every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. The links are down in the description below. If there's anything you want me to clarify on about this video, or simply just talk to me in general, that's a very great place to be. But with that being said, that's gonna be it for me today, guys, and as always, take care and peace.
But anyways,
yeah, that's it.
I had to wash my ass. My wet.
Okay. Oh, that's the first thing.